Success? Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. Today I'm going to talk about the most impactful films on my life that were released in 2013. Man, that was a decade ago. Whew. Can't believe I've done 30 of these videos and still got 10 more to go. But anywho, let's just go down the list, shall we? For a second I thought it was going to be a short one, but you know how that goes. Well, you probably don't, because you're not watching this. But if you are, you might. But you might not, because you haven't seen the others. I don't know. I don't know who watches this stuff. Friendly reminder, I don't do this for you. I do this for me. Documentation. I'm going to be old in 2.5 weeks. In fact, yesterday I'm at work, and I grabbed the cash for everybody and this and that, and then I go back to count the safe, and the safe combination just left my brain. Like, completely. Like, just gone. It was kind of scary, actually. I'm like, no, I can't have my brain start deteriorating now. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff, but ay. Talk about early Alzheimer's. I hope not. That's my worst nightmare. Anywho, the Wolverine. Talk about hairy Canadians. I remember seeing the Wolverine in theater. Enjoyed it a lot more than X-Men Origins Wolverine, obviously, but the Wolverine. It's pretty cool for what it was. Not great, not terrible, but I liked it. I think the thing I remember the most was the end credit scene, where Magneto and Professor X shows up, because I believe this is the one that set up Days of Future Past. But then everybody was like, how is Professor X still alive? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm just thinking, I guess no one saw the end credit scene in X-Men 3: The Last Stand, where they set up in the movie, and then you see at the end. I mean, you kind of have to know a little bit of comic lore, but that's Professor X's twin brother, who's been comatose his whole life, and Professor X put his consciousness into his body. So that's why he still looks the same, and because that body hasn't been used ever, he's still in a wheelchair. Makes perfect sense to me. Gotta pay attention to your end credit scenes, people. Long before they were a regular thing. Anywho, so that was cool. It's a Good Day to Die Hard is a movie that I like. I like all the Die Hard films. I do. I really like them all. Sure, I think the third one is my favorite. And my second favorite is probably the fourth one. I love Timothy Olyphant and Justin Long in that movie. I think the fourth one is very underrated. And then, of course, we get the return of Mary Elizabeth Winstead in A Good Day to Die Hard. I think she kind of has a little small role at the beginning, yeah. She does more kick butt in the fourth one. But in this one, yeah, because this was the last one where it's, I like this movie. I do. I like this movie. It's fun. It's action-packed. It's a Die Hard film. Probably the least memorable bad guy, because I can't even remember them. All the others have the most memorable bad guys. So still wouldn't say it's my least favorite. The second one's probably my least favorite. I think I like this one better than that one. It would probably go 3, 4, 1, 5, 2? I don't know. We're not here to rank films. But A Good Day to Die Hard, for me, is a perfect father-son movie. It's one of my Father's Day tradition films. Perfect Father's Day movie. It's about a dad and a son going through a Die Hard film together. I love it. That end part with the helicopter. Come on now. That's a big helicopter, too. Anywho, excuse me, Man of Steel. Man of Steel. I remember when that came out, my brother and I, we were like, should we see it? And then he saw it and was like, actually, it was pretty good. And then I eventually saw it and I loved it. Love Man of Steel. Love Man of Steel. What's his name? See, my brain. That's why I'm making these videos, to document things before everything just leaves my brain. But Zod. Michael Shannon. Whew. Michael Shannon's one of my favorite actors of all time, period. If you haven't seen Bug, watch Bug and Michael Shannon will become one of your favorite actors. But Man of Steel, like, I was so stoked that they cast him as Zod, and he is amazing. And that's literally my most anticipated part of the new Flash movie, is that Michael Shannon's in it. I could care less about Michael Keaton. I'm with the other Michael. Plus, the beginning of Man of Steel, I really loved what they did with Krypton and the design of everything, and that whole beginning part is like its own little mini movie, and it's absolutely fantastic. Man of Steel, great film. Kicked off the Snyderverse. Big fan of the Snyderverse. I would love for the Snyderverse to continue. I know it won't. But at least we got what we did. At least we got our amazing Justice League film. Zack Snyder's Justice League. At least we... And again, that's why I'm seeing The Flash. I'm not seeing it for The Flash. I'm not seeing it for Michael Keaton. I'm seeing it for Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons and Michael Shannon and the Snyderverse stuff and the fact that we're going back to Man of Steel. Looking forward to that. That's actually a movie that comes out on my birthday, technically, for the Thursday premieres. So I might check that out. Maybe I'll have a birthday double feature of Asteroid City and The Flash. And then, of course, on my birthday, I'm going to watch This Is 40. Maybe we'll talk about that later. The Croods. I have to mention The Croods because my son absolutely loved that movie. My son loves both of those movies. My son absolutely loved it, and he couldn't wait for the sequel. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is pretty funny. Ryan Reynolds is great in it. Nicolas Cage is great in it. The whole cast. What's her name, you know? Did she win an Oscar for Birdman? Ooh, coming next time on Paul's Movie Videos. Birdman. Star Trek Into Darkness is an okay Star Trek film. I enjoy it for what it is. I like all three. I like the first one the best, and I like the second one better than the third one. But, you know, it is what it is. But of course, who I have a vivid memory of going to King Soopers and buying that movie. Because that was one of those I waited till DVD because of all the hype. And I just remember, the most impactful thing about that film was all the big deal about who is Benedict Cumberbatch playing. Ooh, it must be Khan. Oh, but it's not Khan. No, it's not Khan, but it's Khan. We know it's Khan, but it's not. Oh, they denied it even though it was so obvious. And then you get in the movie and it's supposed to be this big reveal, Khan, and we're like, yeah, we know. But I liked what they did with that story, and I loved. Spoiler alert, loved the flip, where it was loosely based on that, the Wrath of Khan. But in this one, instead of Spock dying to save Kirk dies to save Spock. But then Kirk is saved by Spock by using Khan's blood. That's a weird movie. But it's great. Action-packed. Good time. Had Klingons. Pain and Gain. I have to mention Pain and Gain, starring Dwayne Johnson and Mark Wahlberg. Jerry Bruckheimer film. I have heard so many great things about this film. And how great and hilarious. And it's one of, Michael Bay's best. And yada, yada, yada. Did I say Jerry Bruckheimer? I meant Michael Bay. Michael Bay. But I still haven't seen it. I own the movie. Someone lent it to me once, and then, for whatever reason, I never saw them again. So I still own Pain and Gain, and I've never watched it, even though I've always wanted to watch it. So that's the most impactful thing about that movie for me, is that I've always wanted to watch it, and I never got around to it. But the reason is because I've seen the like the clip or whatever it was about the pumping. We gotta get the pump. Gotta get the pump on, man. Gotta get the pump. Which then makes me think of Pumping Iron. Honorable mention to Pumping Iron. I didn't do 1977 movies, but Pumping Iron is one of the greatest documentaries ever made, and one of the most hilarious, some of the most hilarious footage of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the history of mankind. Search YouTube if you're not familiar with Pumping Iron. Search YouTube. Pumping Iron, Arnold Schwarzenegger explaining the pump, or if you want to be vulgar about it, coming. He has this amazing speech. I would not want to be too vulgar, but he compares. You got to see the clip because it's hilarious. He compares getting the pump, the feeling of the pump, is the same as the feeling of coming. I'm coming day and night. So my coworker who actually gave me Pain and Gain for that reason, we would reference Pumping Iron left and right. He's terrific. Oz the Great and Powerful. I have to mention that because I really enjoyed that film. I thought James Franco was great in it. I thought Mila Kunis was great in it, and I thought it was a nice, great little adventure prequel film to The Wizard of Oz, and it was gorgeous. It was very Tim Burton, specifically Alice in Wonderland-esque. which I think they were, trying to ride the coattails of, but I like it. Like that movie. I recently, not only heard of this film for the first time, but immediately bought it and watched it and was blown away. I don't watch many foreign language films because, I mean, if I do, I would prefer dubbed. Because I don't like, it's not that I don't like reading. I'm okay with reading. It's just, the more reading I'm doing, the less I'm soaking in what's going on the screen. That's all. But I remember I did see Life is Beautiful in theaters. And I've seen a good fair share of foreign films or foreign language films. But after The French Dispatch, I'm looking over there because I have a giant poster of it on my wall with naked her on it. I became a huge fan of Léa Seydoux, and since then have loved all of her work, whether it's, I'm looking at another poster, Crimes of the Future, or the fact that she's in both Bond and Mission Impossible, and now she's in Dune. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really excited for Dune Part 2, after having loved Dune Part 1. Yeah, a lot of perks of being a manager at a movie theater. But I love Léa Seydoux. I love Léa Seydoux. So when I found out what Blue is the Warmest Color is, I'll be honest. I was like, what's in this movie now? It's about, like, what? It's very controversial for what reason now? But to my surprise, that's just the cherry on the cake. It's a very NC-17 film. Like, it's literally pornographic in a couple of scenes. Literally. Because I guess they were, the two, Leia and the other actress were maybe dating at the time. They were very, very close. So this was an intimate relationship that they then expressed on film. And I immediately became a fan of the other actress, too. I cannot pronounce her name whatsoever, But to my surprise, Blue is the Warmest Color ended up being one of the greatest films I've ever seen. It is an astounding, amazing achievement in not just cinema, but storytelling in general when it comes to relationships. Because it goes from beginning to end, and especially the way it ends, because, spoiler alert, every relationship ends one way or another. Usually not good, but nothing lasts forever. So you very rarely get the happy ending, and even when you have a happy ending, it keeps going. It's not over yet, and there will be times of unhappiness and end. But Blue is the Warmest Color is such an accurate depiction of relationships and what you go through different phases of them, and it's just, I absolutely loved it. And I highly recommend Blue is the Warmest Color, especially if you're a fan of Léa Seydoux. You definitely get a lot more than your money's worth. Huh. Old Boy. I'm going to mention Old Boy because I saw Old Boy, which is the American remake with Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin? James Brolin. Josh Brolin. No, Brolin. Thanos. And Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen. I believe there's a very graphic, intimate scene in that movie as well. And that movie blew me away. And I was actually going back to my Letterboxd review recently, and I was talking about like how insane the ending is and just what a great movie it is. And I'm like, yeah. But then I recently found out that it's based on, like, it's a remake of a foreign film that apparently was made, it's approaching some anniversary, like the 20th anniversary, 10th anniversary, something like that. And I'm like, oh, I might want to check out the original. And then I'm like, I remember the one that I saw being insane, but I don't remember anything about it now, though, so I need to rewatch it. So it was a very, very big impact on me. I just can't remember why. The Wolf of Wall Street is by far one of the greatest Martin Scorsese films I've ever seen. I mean, I'm putting it up there with Goodfellas and Gangs of New York and The Departed. Top 4 tier. I knew about Wolf of Wall Street for a while before I saw it, and I had no idea that it was what it was. I thought it was just, But then the insanity that ensues in that movie, especially that one scene specifically when Jonah Hill and Leo DiCaprio are on all those drugs and he's on the phone and he can't even speak. Like, that movie is Martin Scorsese insanity at an 11. I don't think any of his other films go quite as insane as The Wolf of Wall Street, and I love every second of it. Oh, and I live by that, like, that speech by Matthew McConaughey when DiCaprio first meets him and they have that meal. That speech has so many great points. Again, forgive my vulgarity, but I'm going to bring this up that he says in the movie. He gives him advice and says, the two things you need is cocaine. I don't support drugs or cocaine. I have delved in it in my younger days. I lived life, especially when I was young. But he brings up, you have to pleasure yourself at least twice a day. I half agree with that. It's a valid point. I would say, forgive me, I'm going to be honest. I would say once a day. But it is a necessary thing to get the blood flowing, to clear your mind, to just make you relax. And ever since, that has been a piece of advice that I support and follow and recommend. I've noticed how sometimes people who are always grumpy, that's what they're missing. And to stay in a clear mind and healthy and energetic and in a good mood on a regular basis, it should be part of your getting ready for the day routine. Just saying. I've been testing it for 10 years and it works. Twice a day is a bit much, but at least once a day, I definitely agree with. God, great movie. Great movie. Speaking of such things, I love Scarlett Johansson and have ever since I first saw her. Whatever it might have been. Whether it was The Man Who Wasn't There or you know, back in her early days, I was like, that is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And with a beautiful singing voice, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Scarlett Johansson has an album of nothing but Tom Waits covers, including duets with David Bowie. Check it out. Scarlett Johansson has a great musical album and it's phenomenal and she has a beautiful singing voice and it's Tom Waits songs. Anyway, so I found out later in interviews that the reason she did this film was because she wanted her pristine body on camera before she had a child, before she was afraid her body would start to look different, which still doesn't. She's still as gorgeous as ever. Women age like wine, okay? Forget your 20-year-olds. I'll take a 30 or 40-year-old any day. Like, women, they get more beautiful with age, as long as they don't do anything fake or plastic surgery related. So anyway, so when we found out there was this crazy movie called Under the Skin, where Scarlett Johansson was going to be fully nude? Yeah, I'm a man. I like women, and I had a huge crush on Scarlett Johansson for years. And I'm like, okay, give me the phone then. I just gotta go find a cash machine. So the second that came out on DVD, I went to Walmart and I bought that, and woo! She's, spoiler alert, Scarlett Johansson is naked in that movie. And she is a beautiful woman. But, it's a good movie, too. Oh, yeah, it's a really good, creepy, odd, weird, one-of-a-kind, unique, insane ending. Like, great movie. But she's the best part. She could consume me and her black oil any day. I don't know, that's a weird movie. It's a weird movie. The same year? Really? Did these really come out the same year? I find that hard to believe, but it's possible. Speaking of Mr. Denis Villeneuve, Prisoners, starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. An astounding film. Oh, and Paul Dano. Oh, and Paul Dano. An astounding film. But now I'm a parent. Like, at the time of its release, and when I eventually saw it, and to this day, obviously. As a parent, even though I don't have a daughter, still, as a parent, that movie is such a tough watch. I cannot imagine. I mean, I can't attest to something that horrific and tragic and extreme, but I am currently going through, on a very minor level, something similar where my child is literally being imprisoned right now, and I am unable to see him or speak to him. Not like jail in prison, like, I mean, someone is illegally imprisoning him and withholding him after technically kidnapping him, and is now holding him hostage, making demands before they will release him legally. Oh, she's gonna be in so much trouble. Anyway, courts take a long time though. So yeah, Prisoners is such a tough watch as a parent because I cannot imagine. But I guess that same year, speaking of Jake Gyllenhaal... Wait, that wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners. No. It's Hugh Jackman and the other guy. Rhodey. The first Rhodey. Anyway. But I got Jake Gyllenhaal in my head because also by Denis Villeneuve, Enemy. One of his first films. And when I eventually saw Enemy, talk about a one-of-a-kind, unique, mind-altering film. Enemy is amazing. You got Jake Gyllenhaal twice. It takes place in Toronto. Literally, I was born right outside Toronto. I always loved the skyline. The CN Tower is like my favorite landmark in the world. And you get these great shots of this weird, giant, long-legged spider. You've got the weird ending that... I think I understand what the movie is, what it represents, what it means, and what's happening. But the first time you see it, it just scrambles your brain. But it is so good. So good. Enemy is an underrated film. And considering that now Denis Villeneuve is universally known as one of the greatest directors of our time... more people should get around. Like people have come around to things like Sicario, sure, but Enemy. Check it out for your health. Okay, penultimate here. Oblivion. I have to mention Oblivion. It's okay. It's an okay movie, but whatever. But I have to mention Oblivion because it was the follow-up 3 years later by the director of Tron Legacy. If you've seen my 2010 video, you know exactly why Tron Legacy is a huge deal for me and my second all-time favorite film, according to my Letterboxd 4 list. Anyway, Tron Legacy is the most important movie to me in my life. So I have to acknowledge that that director then went on to make a movie, Oblivion, which was starring Tom Cruise. And that's how him and Tom Cruise started such a very close relationship, which then 9 years later resulted in last year's second biggest movie. I worked at the movie theater, and that movie just kept on going for almost an entire year. Like, it just kept saying, one of the busiest times was this early screening of it we had. We had a sold-out Dolby. That's pretty rare for my particular theater. But Top Gun Maverick is directed by the same director of Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise, of course, and then also the director of Tron Legacy. I'm the one person who doesn't like Top Gun Maverick. It's okay for what it is, and I think there's like 3 parts that I enjoy. And the only character I liked was the pretty lady pilot. She's cool. Turns out that's the only actor in the film that didn't puke on their jet. Because she's awesome. So she was cool, but overall, that movie is just garbage. Pandering about the whole thing. You insult Val Kilmer's legacy. You don't have to put him in the film. You just make it You could just write him. You don't have, he doesn't have to be in the movie. Just to waste him like that. And it was, and then the whole movie's about a guy who can't get over the death of his friend from like 30 years ago. There's literally a shot in that movie of him just watching people inside the bar having fun while he reminisces on his guilt of his friend's death from 30 years ago. That movie's just ridiculous. Overall, it's just a remake of the trench run on the Death Star from A Star Wars: A New Hope. But whatever. Everyone loves that movie for some reason. I think it's one of the most overrated films of all time. Top Gun Maverick. Oblivion's better than that movie. And it's not even great. Let's not talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about that in the 2022 video. And I can rant about how much I did not care for that film. But anyway, last, the number one most impactful film on me in 2013 was Gravity. I mean, that movie won Oscars, for goodness sake. Apparently now, 10 years later, people kind of write it off as, no, it's stupid. But that was kind of a big deal. Like, that trailer, where it just showed us, like, the first thing, and then she's going to... That movie... Okay, because I remember seeing it with one of my brothers, and we went, and we had to ride the bus and do some walking, but it was well worth it. And we went and we saw it on the IMAX. And it was one of the most intense, immersive, exhilarating viewing experiences of my life. To see a movie like Gravity in an IMAX theater, we were there. We were in space. And that movie has some insane sequences that get your heart pumping, especially in a setting like that. I think Sandra Bullock's phenomenal in it. I think George Clooney's phenomenal in it. I love the story from beginning to end, the cinematography, the sound design, or lack thereof in very important scenes, because it's space. Like, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant film. And I even like the ending. I think it's very poetic and fulfilling, the ending of that film. But it just, I was so in a surreal state of mind after seeing that film for a long time, because it was just, like I said, when it comes to exhilarating, immersive, heart-pounding experiences in a movie theater, this is at least top 10, if not top 5 of my life. Gravity. Man, if they put it back in, I think they did once, and I didn't get a chance. But if they put that back in theaters or in 3D or on an IMAX screen, I would be there in a heartbeat. Gravity, man, that was such an exhilarating ride. And who doesn't love Sandra Bullock? And George Clooney, but especially Sandra Bullock. If you've seen my past videos, I had a big crush on her in The Net and Speed. Anyway, so there you have it. Gravity. 2013, good year. My son turned 1. Oh, and then other things happened that year. Postpartum is a real thing. But so's narcissism and schizophrenia. Anyway. Space is the final frontier. Just trying to find something clever to say before I stop the video, but I guess I'll go with what I always say. Okie dokie.